Bestiality children next door. If you don't know what bestiality is, hold on. So I was living in this neighborhood for 5 years. Throughout those 5 years, not one time did my family go and talk to the other neighbors. Why didn't we talk to the other neighbors? Because it's not like we were trying to make friends or anything. We didn't care for them. Well, one day, the neighbors' kids were playing outside while I was playing outside. My mom urged me to go over there and play with the other kids, even though I didn't really want to. So there was a little boy and a little girl. I went over there and I asked if I could pet their dog because they were playing with their dog. They said yes, and the dog started playing with me and started licking my face. Yeah, keep that in mind. Then we started talking about the bus because we ride the same bus. We have the same bus stop. After playing with them for a while, they invited me inside. I asked my mom if I could go. She said yes. So the little boy ran into his room and then the little girl invited me to her room. So to pass time, I asked her what she does for fun. She said she plays with her brother. And then she asked if I liked animals. Obviously, I say yes, and so she asked to show me a trick. That's when she brings the dog into the room and proceeds to pull down her pants, like for part 2. This is part 2 of the bestiality children next door. Like I said, she brings her dog into the room and pulls down her pants. Totally forgot a very crucial piece of information. I was in 5th grade at the time. That's why I did what I did in these next events. So she pulls down her pants and lets the dog go at it. The same dog that licked my face previously. The dog went for it. He knew what to do. The only words that I could form was ew. She had trained this dog to do that. So after I said ew, she immediately got up and put her pants up. And she was surprised that I was grossed out like any normal human being wouldn't be. Then out of nowhere, she starts crying and I started feeling really bad. So I told her that I wouldn't tell anybody. And so she tells me I had to switch to my dog because my hamster wouldn't do it. Then she gets up and opens this drawer and proceeds to pull out a dead hamster. She says he wouldn't lick, he would only bite. She starts crying really hard and says she feels uncomfortable and she would feel better if I let the dog do what it did to her. As much as I didn't want to, I wanted her to feel comfortable, so I did it. This is part 3 of the bestiality children next door. Like I said, I gave in. I didn't know how it was supposed to feel. It felt weird, but it didn't feel good. So I stopped and she started giggling and I just felt so uncomfortable, so I wanted to go home. Then she started acting like she was annoyed and started getting really mad at me. But I was like, whatever, and so she let me leave. Well, it was a Sunday that day and the next day we had to go to school, but she wasn't at the bus stop. And so I get on the bus and I go to school that day and everything is fine. Until halfway through the school day, my mom comes to pick me up early. She would never come to pick me up early for no reason. I would usually have an appointment and I would know about it before. I would know if I was going to leave school that day and was going to get picked up, but I wasn't notified. So my mom came to pick me up, and while we were on the way home, she said that my dad had stayed home from work that day, and when we got home, we were going to have a talk about what I did with the neighbor's dog. I promise you're going to want to like for part 4. This is part 4 of the bestiality children next door. Baby, that rhymed. Like I said, my mom is driving me home right now and we're gonna have a talk when we get home with my dad about what I did with the neighbor's dog. I tried to explain myself to her in the car, but she wouldn't let me talk. She didn't want me to say anything until we got home. But when we got home, it wasn't just my dad sitting in the living room. The neighbors were there. The mom, dad, and the 2 kids. So I was like, is this a setup? The neighbor's dad is fuming. As soon as I walked into the living room, he stood up and tried to get in my face. Mind you, I was in 5th grade. He did that in front of my parents. My parents told him to back up, obviously, but there was a lot of tension. When he was in my face, he was saying, how dare you force my daughter to do that with our own dog? That's when I knew what the fuck was going on. This little fucker. Basically, after I left my neighbor's house the day before, the daughter went up to the parents and told them that I showed her the trick with the dog and forced her to do it. But this is when things take a turn, babes. This is part 5 of the bestiality children next door. Like I said, my neighbor's parents and their kids and my parents and I were all in my living room discussing about this dog situation. So I went ahead and explained myself that she was a fucking liar and that nothing that's coming out of her mouth was true and that she was just lying and lying. And the neighbor's parents weren't too happy about the fact that I was calling their daughter a liar. Then the mom just lost it and started screaming at me and going at me and just saying all these mean, terrible things. It was almost as if she had a personal problem with me. Well, baby. So I started crying really hard once the neighbor's mom started yelling at me. I don't know what that did to the neighbor's daughter, but she folded. She said, I lied. I'll tell you guys the truth. She finally admitted that it was her idea and she's the one who introduced it to me. Then once her parents expressed their disapproval, this fucking child, she says, I thought it was okay because I saw mom doing it when dad wasn't home. Let me tell you about this story of me while I was in the psych ward. Don't ask why I was in the psych ward, just know that I was there. Okay, so while I was there, we had to do these group meetings as soon as we woke up and before we went to bed. We had to wake up at 9 a.m. in the morning. I hated it there. I was depressed. I'd always give the workers shit about going to those meetings. I was like, fuck y'all, I'm not going to those goddamn meetings. One night my stomach was hurting really bad, so they let me skip the meeting and sleep early. And I had gotten up in the middle of the night to go ask for some stomach medicine. When I walk out my room, I see this little boy standing at the end of the hall, and so I'm like, hello? And this motherfucker goes and starts hissing at me Mind you, when he went, he had scissors in his hand. I knew I could outrun that motherfucker, so I started hissing at him back. I said, yeah, motherfucker, what's up, little mail packet? Yeah, what's really going on? Then he starts going, oh. So I match his energy once again, and I start going, who the fuck is you doing that to? Then he picks up his scissors like this and charges dead at me. I zoomed out that hallway so fast. Bitch, I disappeared. I left for part 2 because it only gets worse. Part 2 of the story of me in the psych ward. So like I said, this little white boy who's like 4'8" starts chasing me down the hallway with his little chicken legs. Mind you, he had scissors in his hands. So he was actually trying to kill me. You'll know why I think that in the end. So mind you, while he was chasing me, I did not look back. Not once. I didn't know if this motherfucker was gonna start climbing the walls. Shit, I don't know if he was gonna start crawling on the ceiling. My main goal was just to get away. So I eventually make it to the front desk. I look behind me to see if he was still there. Well, he wasn't, so I'm guessing that he stopped chasing me at the end of the hall. The front desk lady is looking at me like, mind you, we weren't allowed to carry scissors or even pencils or anything like that because it was dangerous. And so I didn't want to get that little boy in trouble. So I just told her like, no, I'm good. I just need medicine. Well, eventually they did end up finding him with the scissors anyways and took it away from him. But baby, he found a way to get that shit back. The next morning, everybody came out for breakfast and these workers were dragging the same little boy out of his room. And he was like kicking and screaming and all of that. Well, turns out he stole another pair of scissors in the middle of the night, stabbed another kid in his sleep. Part 3 of the story of me in the psych ward. So like I said, this same little boy who was chasing me last night with a pair of scissors had sneaked into another kid's room in the middle of the night and stabbed him in his sleep. This little boy's goal was to harm. And it could have easily been me. And I was over there fucking around with that kid talking about, hissing at him because he was hissing at me. I could have died. What if I couldn't have outran him? I would have gotten stabbed. I thought that it was just some weird little boy. I did not think that he was trying to really hurt somebody. Well, rumors started going around the psych ward that the reason that he stabbed that other kid was because he had asked that other boy, I think it was a boy that he stabbed, for his Roblox username so they could play together when they get out. And that kid said no because of the HIPAA violation or whatever. So while that kid was sleeping in the middle of the night, he had gone into his room and stabbed him because he didn't give him his Roblox username. What's one really bad thing you did as a child that you kept secret for your entire life and didn't tell nobody? I'll go first. I got a lot of stories like this, but this is just one of them. So my mama used to put me in daycare, and in my daycare, we used to do field trips and we went to the YMCA. So while we were in the pool, this one white kid comes up to me. He asked me like, why are you black? And I was kind of embarrassed, but I wasn't mad at the kid. I was more embarrassed than I was mad. And I told him that my parents painted me every single day. And I was thinking back at the time when I scraped my knee and the skin came off and there was like no blood. It was just bone. But I didn't know that it was bone. I thought that I was just white underneath. So I was like, it's true, like I can peel my skin off and prove it. When I did that, I peeled skin off my finger and it was a lot of skin and I started bleeding really bad. So the water started getting red and the daycare people tried to get everybody out the water like there was something going on. And then once everybody was out of the water, one of the daycare people go, I'm so sorry, everybody. I lost my tampon. I need to find it. Okay, so what happened was pretty self-explanatory, but I can make a part 2 if you guys want. So this is part 2 of the really bad thing that I did as a child and kept secret. So my daycare instructor, or whatever you call them, basically said that she had lost her tampon in the water. And I'm guessing she said that because she was on her period and she had a tampon in and the water started turning red, and that's the only reason that she could think of. But like they started checking all the kids and making sure that all the kids were okay and stuff. And when they came up to me and asked me if I was good, I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And so they were looking in the water for like an hour, but there was no tampon. Like they could not find the tampon. Like that one white kid, he was not part of the daycare. Like he wasn't one of the daycare kids. So they evacuated everybody out the pool. Like nobody was allowed in there. And like we all got back on the bus and we went back to the daycare, and the daycare instructor who thought she had lost her tampon literally talked to all of us and was like, things like this can happen as a woman and when you get older, you'll understand. But baby, I stayed mute. Ain't nobody know. One person knows, but hopefully she don't see this on her For You page. Sorry about it.